What's happening, guys? Welcome back to the channel. And with domestic matters concluding about 2 weeks ago, we're now heading towards the transfer window, which opens on June the 9th. And as always, there's going to be a big scramble for players for a lot of the top clubs. And off the back of a disappointing season, it would have to be said, missing out on European football altogether for the first time in 25 years. It's a big window for Arsenal. I'm delighted to be joined by Arsenal season ticket holder Luke Webb, aka Webby, to discuss the transfer window at Arsenal and what he expects to see and what he'd like to see. So let's get right into things then, mate. Outgoings at Arsenal. Obviously, there's a lot of dead wood in the squad. The likes of David Luiz has already been shipped on. Who else are you expecting to move on?
Well, yeah, like you said, mate, we've already shipped on Luiz, but I've got a list here, to be honest, that I think in terms of a transfer window, we've got such a lot of work to do in terms of getting players out the door. I mean, experienced players as well. So you start with Luiz, obviously that's already done. Willian, who ultimately has been a massive flop for Arsenal. It's just not worked out for anyone. I don't think he particularly wants to be there anymore. Arsenal don't particularly want him. So another bumper contract that's probably going to have to be paid off. So I think all the rumours are Willian's out the door. I think he put an Instagram story up in the week he was in Dubai or wherever, saying like, "Oh, pondering my future," and I think that kind of gave it away. So Willian's that going out the door. I think another big player for us is Granit Xhaka. He's a bit of Marmite with the Arsenal fans, with some people rating, some people absolutely can't stand the bloke. But there's whispers that Xhaka might be moving on. Another fairly experienced player for Arsenal that's played a lot over the last few seasons in central midfield. Leno, the keeper as well, another one, experienced player. I think he wants to gain a bit more international recognition with Germany, and to be honest, he's probably fair enough. Is he really going to get that not playing in Europe with Arsenal? And I think there's a lot of clubs sniffing around him, Champions League clubs. So Leno's on the way out. And the final kind of senior player that I can see leaving would be Hector Bellerin as well. He's been at the club a long time. I think his injuries have held him back a little bit. I don't really have a bad word to say about him. I think he's been fantastic off the pitch and as an Arsenal guy, but last couple of years it's just not quite worked out on the pitch for him. So a few clubs sniffing around him. So that they're kind of 5 players that are senior to the squad that in the transfer window, to lose 5 senior players like that, I know we need to overhaul, but obviously myself and a lot of Arsenal fans are probably thinking, how do you feel that? As much of those players have been frustrating for us, you're losing a lot of experience, you're losing big personalities in the dressing room. So they're 5 that I'd say are certainly potentially out the door. And then you've got a few other situations, young players like Nketiah, Maitland-Niles, who have been out on, Maitland-Niles been out on loan, and Nketiah's had limited minutes. Joe Willock's had a sensational loan spell at Newcastle, but these are 3 young players that need sorting. Lacazette into his last year of his contract. So to be honest, mate, we can touch on any of those kind of 8 players because all of them are probably likely to be out the door, if not close to be.
Yeah, I think it's a big window, as we mentioned at the top. But you know, as you said, if you're letting 8 players out the squad, it's a lot of bodies to then try and bring back in to make the numbers back up. So I wouldn't. I mean, I don't know how you feel about it, but would you expect that to all happen this window, or do you think it would make more sense to just phase it over the next 1 or 2 windows, move a couple on, bring a couple in, and sort of gradually do it that way?
Yeah, I think that's a concern. It's I think the consensus is that Arsenal need an overhaul, is like we like to call it. We need a squad overhaul. But like you said, it's not quite as easy as just getting rid of 10, getting 10 in, and then all of a sudden, come August, you're top of the league. Especially with the Euros being this summer, I think every manager, when you read books and interviews and stuff they've done, getting deals done in an international summer is particularly hard. We've got a fairly inexperienced team. So Edu, who is the ex-Arsenal central midfielder, he's heavily involved on the board and working as a football operations at Arsenal. I'm not sure of the exact title, but he seems to head up all our transfers. So this is Arteta, and they're fairly inexperienced in terms of overhauling a squad. So I kind of agree with you. I'd like to see them address the key positions. I'd like to see them get the deadwood out the door. But I think you look back to some examples. I know Tottenham always seems to take the brunt of jokes, but that summer where Tottenham just sold Bale and then signed like 8 players or however many they signed, it doesn't work out like that in football. So don't expect everything to be answered this window, and I don't really expect us to necessarily be ready to go come the season. It's going to be a gradual process.
Yeah, just to touch on a couple of names you did mention. Obviously, Arsenal in the past have been known for offering big contracts to aging players and it not working out. Obviously, with Lacazette entering the last year of his deal, and obviously in that age range, what do you expect the club to do with him? Do you expect him to be offered a new deal, perhaps on reduced terms, or do you think it's time to cash in on him, get what you can, rather than letting him leave for free?
Yeah, it's a good point you make. We've had a bad history with big deals for players past 30. I expect Lacazette to be offered a new deal. So they're the whispers coming out of some of the kind of more reputable Arsenal journalists. I think you look at Nketiah has been offered around. So Nketiah's been linked with Leeds. We were sniffing around Odyssey Edouard, who I think is going to Leicester from what I've seen. But that's fallen through. So I could see Lacazette potentially being offered a new deal. I don't necessarily think that's right. I'd quite like to see us just persist with Aubameyang through the middle, and then we've got backup with likes of Martinelli, who can play down centrally if needed. And like you said, I think our history with offering players post 30 bumper deals it's just been a nightmare, and I could see this happening with Lacazette again. Don't get me wrong, he's still got a lot to offer. He still had a half decent season with us, and I like him as a player, but I'd rather us. It shows we were going after Edouard for a reason, and it seems a bit that might have fallen through. In which case they've settled on a new deal. But yeah, we'll see.
Just before we move on to what you'd like to see come in, mate. You touched on Joe Willock. Obviously, not had much of a sniff round the Arsenal first team. Obviously, he's gone on loan to Newcastle and had an outstanding spell. Reports doing the rounds that Newcastle will be looking to make that deal permanent for between 20 to 30 million pounds. Do you expect Joe Willock to be an Arsenal player next season, or do you think it's time to cash in on him?
Yeah, I expect him to be an Arsenal player next season. I think you'd be surprised. I think a lot of Arsenal fans as well. He's actually played quite a lot at Arsenal. The thing is, it's always been Europa League, FA Cup, League Cup. I think he's played over 60, 70 games for Arsenal now. So he's fairly experienced, really, for a young player. Obviously, Newcastle are going to want him. I think you've just got to keep him. Like, how valuable are goal-scoring midfielders? He's a bit of an anomaly in terms of the way he plays, because I think a lot of his stats are rubbish. But his XG and the positions he gets in and the goals he actually scores, like, he just has a sniff for goal. He makes good runs into the box. He's obviously a good finisher, and that spell at Newcastle has probably rewarded him. He probably deserves a bumper new deal at Arsenal. And I was reading something earlier. I think his dad's quite influential in his career, and his dad was really impressed with the way Arsenal managed his loan deal out of Newcastle. And I'd be very, very surprised if Newcastle sign him, unless they came in and offered something like 40, 50 million, which ultimately we could reinvest. Anything less than that, I'd be offering him a new deal. I think he's a very valuable player for us.
And moving on to the incomings, obviously quite fresh news in the last day or so. Obviously, Arsenal have been linked with Eni Buendia from Norwich for a number of windows now, but it looks like the club have missed out on him, with him looking like he's going to end up at Aston Villa in a club record £33 million deal. It's not quite gone through yet, so things could still change at the last minute. But just how disappointed are you and the fan base in general that it looks like Arsenal are going to miss out on a player being outbidded by Aston Villa?
Yeah, I think there's a couple of ways you can look at it. Obviously, the Twitter reaction and the fan reaction will be Villa have got Buendia, Arsenal wanted him, Villa have beaten Arsenal to the player. I try not to get too wound up by rumours, and don't really know whether it might just be a case of Arsenal had an interest in Buendia. They had other options. You don't know where he was on our priority list, and Villa have come in and persuaded him. On the other hand, there were a couple of, again, some of the better sources at Arsenal that seem to be quite close to the club and get things right. They said Arsenal made a bid, and that worries me, because if Villa are going in for a player and Arsenal are making a panic bid at the last minute, and I think the quote was, Edu said something like, we do the way things we want to, and basically referring to the fact that the transfer fell through for Arsenal because potentially his agent or his party didn't work in the way Arsenal wanted him to work when it comes to dealings. And to me, that's ridiculously stubborn. And if Buendia was the number one target as an attacking midfielder, and we've let it fall through based on something that innocuous, then it would be frustrating. But I know it's not necessarily related to Arsenal, but it's fascinating to see what happens with Villa, whether Buendia is something to try and persuade Grealish to stay, or whether it's a Grealish replacement. I'm not quite sure where that sits at the moment, but yeah, obviously a fantastic player, and I'm sure he'll go on to be awesome for Villa, and we'll probably rue the fact that we've missed out on him.
I mean, in terms of, just before we wrap up then, mate, in terms of like positions that you think urgently need addressing, maybe 3 or 4 signings, what are the key areas do you feel that need to be improved heading into next season that will make this team better?
Yeah, sure. I mean, I've got a little list here. I think starting from the back, if Leno goes, then we need a goalkeeper. I think they're trying to get Matt Ryan, who was on loan as a backup, signed permanently. He's an Arsenal fan. I don't see any hiccups with that deal going through, so I'd expect Matt Ryan to come in. And we have been heavily linked with Andre Onana from, is he still at Ajax? He's at Ajax,
yeah, he's serving a ban at the moment, isn't he? Yeah.
Yeah, the result of that ban is, I'm not sure what happened, but heavily linked with him, who's obviously meant to be a very good ball-playing goalkeeper. So I'm sure if we get rid of Leno, or if Leno goes, we'll need to address that. Central midfield, obviously, if Xhaka moves on again, then we need to address that. And we've been heavily linked with Basuma for a while from Brighton, who's Premier League talent, good player. He's an Arsenal fan again, and if you believe the reports again, he's quite keen to join, and I don't see there to be too many issues getting Basuma from Brighton for a decent fee. And coming out a bit sooner as well in central midfield, we've been linked with Ruben Neves from Wolves, which has been met with a bit of a mixed reaction from Arsenal fans, because there's a lot of concern that he's not necessarily an upgrade on Xhaka. Granted, Xhaka has his critics, but he's very effective, and a lot of fans are concerned that Neves is a bit of a sideways move and we're not really moving forward. Personally, whenever I've seen him, he's played well, but as we know, Wolves play a very specific system, and whether it's fit with Arsenal is yet to see. But central midfield needs addressing. And then moving on to, obviously we've gone after and made a bid for Buendia. That's probably going to Villa. So we need to get that old, well, it used to be a number 10, but an attacking midfielder in. Really, I think it boils down to whether we get Odegaard permanently. I think the club are very keen as him to come in as the number 1 target. He obviously had a good loan spell, settled in very quickly, was very impressive. I think Real Madrid like him as well, so I think we'd have to fork up a fair amount of money for him. If Odegaard doesn't come in, a few names we've been linked with are obviously James Maddison, Houssam Aouar from Lyon. Some names that we get linked with, all good players, but it'll be interesting to see who's up there on the list.
Yeah.
So yeah, and then finally, like you said before, Willock, we got to get Willock signed up, mate. He's been awesome for Newcastle, so get him in on a new deal, and yeah, there's some of the deals that I could see potentially happening. But as with any club, and particularly Arsenal, we always seem to pull something out of the blue. So.
Yeah, it certainly seems that there's going to be a busy summer ahead at Arsenal. This seems like a good point to end the video at. As always, smash a like on the video. If you're new to the channel, make sure you subscribe. Webby, thanks for your time, mate. Massively appreciate it. And we'll catch you in the next video.